I'm with Warford Reaney. Warford, let me start by asking you, hectic day, lots of meetings, how's it been?
It's been good. 1,000 questions, one day.
So you've been an expert on dealing with compliance issues since the longest time. And in your session today, you said you're almost an Indian yourself with the number of years that you've spent in India. How strong are Indian pharma manufacturers compared to those of the other key economies when it comes to handling regulatory practices?
I would say India has a number of advantages. First, of course, is that English is our common language. So with English, although it also creates its own problems because they're different dialects, at least we can communicate in the same language on paper, which helps a lot because a lot of the cross-cultural confusion goes away because we can do that. And so that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is we're not such different cultures. At least from the compliance point of view, because we both cultures respect life, both cultures believe, at least at a certain level, the rule of law. So those things are common. What's not common is that the personal life of Indians is very different than the personal life of Americans.
Yes, in fact, and I was going to come to that. You've been mentioning cultural differences as one key factor which differentiates us. When it, right from the saying yes to a compliance and going on to the bigger issues. So can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So I've been married into an Indian family for over 20 years now. So I have that experience as well. I had lived here as a teenager when I was a younger guy. So I've been working with Indian companies since 2008. So I have that experience of doing all this and working with people. The Indian culture is very rich when it comes to family. When you're growing up as a person, as a kid, you're in a family that has multiple generations, typically multiple generations in the same house. Whatever your living conditions are, still all those family members are there. Yeah. I married into a robust family, lots of people.
That's common.
Yeah, and I'm very happy about it. I love my family. But there's a lot of relationships there, and there's a lot of social conditioning that's built into those relationships, so that when your grandparents are living with you as a child, you get both someone to be the enforcer, who is the parent, as well as the grandparent, who is the reinforcer of social behavior. So that kind of life, which is really great for society, because society is, generally speaking, a very calm thing in India, very busy but calm. That's a good thing, right? It's a social thing. So the second layer then becomes when you go to school. At least until recently, the schooling back and certainly when I was here in India, corporal punishment was an expected thing. When you went to school, there was no raising your hand to ask questions that might challenge what the teacher was saying. If you ask a question, it had to do only with the subject or a clarification on the subject. It could never be, I don't believe what you're saying, or
and you have to accept the answer.
Yes, you have to accept the answer. So all through your schooling, especially when you have corporal punishment involved, then one becomes conditioned to comply. You comply from your family level, you comply from a schooling level. And this is not a bad thing, it's just a thing, right? It's just a conditioning. So when you go into the corporate world, all those roles between when you're a fresher till you get to the MD of the company, all those roles are predefined when you go into companies. The hierarchies, doesn't matter about pharma or anything else, all companies in India, generally speaking, have this hierarchy. So you know your role, you know your relationship, and all of this conditioning that you had, this programming as a child, in your schooling, you already just fit nicely into those companies, right? That those roles are there, there's similar roles, you're familiar with those roles, and those roles just go on when you go into business. The difficulty comes when you have a conflict with compliance. When an American set of compliance rules come in and they're counter to those social norms. So those social norms are so strong when they come up against these conflicts.
So give us an example. I mean, how does this cultural difference reflect into an actual business situation?
Sure. So when, let's talk about the data integrity is a huge problem in India. Absolutely. From all the warning letters. In the US, if this were to happen, it's typically considered as fraud. That someone purposefully has done something to create a situation where something else will happen. It's purposefully done. In India, I would say it's not purposely done. I would say that it's a part of the culture that has caused this condition to happen. For me, it's a signal of a root cause. It's not the root cause itself. It's not a root cause of fraud, it's a root cause of culture. So if you and I are doing something together, and you're my boss, and I'm working for you, and I have found something that's really troubling, I am very reluctant to come to you with that troubling thing because it's going to impact you. It's not going to impact me. Right. I found the problem, but I need to tell you about the problem to fix it. But I know if I tell you about the problem, you'll have to tell your boss about the problem, at which point then you'll be in trouble with your boss. I will be in a situation where I have to talk about bad things. And my experience is people don't like to talk about bad things. Americans love to talk about bad things, right? You've seen it on TV, CNN, you've seen it, all those shows where people are yelling at each other. When I went to school, 30% of my grade after 8th grade was based on participation. I had to challenge the teacher. It was part of my education. I would not have passed without that challenge. And in fact, I got really high grades because I challenged the most. We are trained in the US to be challenging to authority. That's what we do. That's how we're trained. Extremely opposite in India, right? So one of the problems we had was on one project where someone didn't tell somebody something, they just went ahead and did it. They never asked for permission to do it. They just did it. And why did they do it? They did it because they were worried, not that their supervisor, but their manager was going to say no. And it had to do with the family situation. So if the manager had said no, they couldn't have done this thing, but they had to do this thing. So they didn't even bother to say anything. What they did was they talked to their buddy on the shop floor and said, please sign for me. I'm going to go out of the plant. I'll be back tomorrow.
Which became a big issue.
It's a big issue because then we found the record at the gate where he didn't have a signature. We found his signature in a batch record they didn't match. Well, that's a huge problem. That's a data integrity problem. In the US, we would say that was a fraud. Here, it was a social issue that caused that problem. That there wasn't enough transparency between the operator and that manager that they didn't feel comfortable enough for this fellow to ask for that time off. It was purely a personal thing. And it wasn't that the manager, when the manager was asked what the hell had happened, he said, I didn't even know. And the condition was a very personal one. He said, I would definitely have left the guy out. Of course I would have. I'd be an idiot not to. So he didn't even bother to ask. That social conditioning was so strong that it overwhelmed the compliance. And that is the problem. That's the nut.
Cultural issues and cultural differences like these, it's going to take a long time to have a change in that and see that reflecting on business and the way it's functioning. What do you think can be done today, the need of the hour, which is more faster when it comes to taking the growth of the sector? Right.
So it doesn't actually take all that much time. The people who are making the product, the operators, the lab people and the lab technicians, nobody doesn't want to tell the truth. That's my experience. By and large, I'm sure there's some bad apples, but I haven't met those bad apples. I have only met people who want to do the right thing. Unfortunately, their conditioning tells the right thing has a different right thing. That it's more right thing to be in a social situation with you.
So it's not intentional, they're just...
Not intentional whatsoever. And in fact, it makes them feel very uncomfortable. If you take that manager, take his boss's boss's boss, the managing director, and have that managing director come to the shop floor on a periodic basis, which means more than once in a month, on a daily basis comes to the shop floor to see what's going on, that culture changes almost overnight. There's a fear factor between the shop floor and the executive management for communication. If you erase that, then all of things change immediately. So I don't think it will take that long. It just takes an understanding of the problem. It takes a sea change in the way management does management. And I don't think it will take that long. I know that when we had this problem on the project I was on, it took about 2 weeks before the people at the shop floor level changed. And all of a sudden we had all these problems coming to us, but then we could solve all those problems. That's the whole point. In GMP, what you want to do is get this knowledge, you have that transparency, tell the truth all the time so that you can fix the problem. That's the whole point of GMP. And
what role do you think the Indian government can play to improve the situation?
Well, certainly the work that they're doing now is tremendous. They put in place a system to certify the operators on the shop floor, which will give them specific knowledge on how to do their job, which right now it's all tribal knowledge from the company. And so they'll actually have a third party helping them get those certifications, which will give them a certain amount of self-esteem, certain amount of power within that structure, because now they'll be certified. As well, there's a lot of influx of NRIs to India coming back, which
you mentioned reverse brain drain.
Yeah,
in fact, I wanted to ask you on the reverse brain drain concept. Not heard here as yet.
Yeah, so I've already seen some people coming back. The large MNC, not so much in pharma, but in other industries. Certainly in the, I have friends who are at Accenture, at KPMG. They have come back, and they're starting their families here instead of starting their families there. Now, certainly with the new administration in Washington, that may accelerate. Who knows what's exactly going to happen? But I would imagine that probably is going to accelerate as things become more uncomfortable on that side. Also, schooling is changing in India very big time. That corporal punishment is being pushed out. That there is a sense that knowledge is very important, and that children do need to challenge the system. And so that's happening. And certainly the people of your age and the younger people beyond that, they have already a different attitude on what it is to be a professional in India. So I think all that's changing, and it's changing in a modern Indian way. It's not changing in some other way. It's changing. It's an internal thing that's just changing.
And since it's Regulators Day today and it's a hot topic, last 2 years we've seen the maximum number of 483s coming in, which has been severely affected us on the stock market.
Right.
Is there just a phase, or is there something genuinely wrong?
Well, two comments. One, it didn't used to affect the stock market. That's the first thing. These things haven't stopped happening. They just are now affecting the stock market. That's the first thing. Second thing is that still you have so many companies who are making products for that market who aren't getting warning letters, who aren't getting 483s.
Which are not being brought out.
Yeah, it's not brought out because it's not happening, right? So meaning that they are passing their inspections. And so if you have 500 companies and everyone gets inspected once in 2 years, at least 250 are getting inspected. Which means that, okay, you're only hearing about 10, 15, 20 of these. It's a very small percentage. Now that the big MNCs, that's a different thing, and it's really crashing on the stock exchange. That's another thing. But we had a discussion earlier today. I think some of that, the compliance issues had been building up over years and had not been addressed. And so we're seeing it now because it's detectable. Partly because the software around the lab analysis is better. So now you can see things that are going wrong better than you ever could before. And there's a deeper appreciation for the problems on the shop floor, so that people are looking at batch records differently. So it's partly a detection issue. There's more detection of it. People know what to look for so they can find it. But also, FDA also does cyclical fines. And I don't know if it's FDA or if it's just life, some greater cycles going on. But these things change. Right now it's data integrity. 2 years from now it'll be something else.
So from today's conference, what are the 3 key insights that you would like our investors to take?
Good question. That injectable drugs are really hard. That's number one.
And you've been an expert on that.
Yeah. Injectable drugs are hard. It takes a lot of technical knowledge. It takes a lot of infrastructure. It takes a lot of human habit that's very good, a specific kind of human technical habit that it's just very difficult. It's a difficult environment for manufacturing. It's, I guess, at the highest level of pharmaceutical manufacturing. So when things go wrong, it's, for me, not unexpected. It's a difficult environment. I think other people see it as, oh my gosh, now what's going wrong? It's a higher level of science. It's a higher level of technology. Of course, things will go wrong more. It's just natural. And the level of scrutiny is much higher because injectable drugs can kill you if they're wrong.
Right.
They
risk
won't,
factor is much higher.
Yeah, they won't make you sick, they'll kill you. So obviously the public safety issue is there. And so there's much more scrutiny from all regulators on injectable drugs. So that's one. Let's see, second one, that the solution for all these problems has got to be an Indian solution. No amount of American consultants will help you with this.
And they'll be costly also.
Yeah, it'd be damn costly. So that's the second one, although I'm not trying to take business for myself. I'm just saying that Indian solutions have to come, right? The third thing is that an investment in a quality product is the best defense against compliance.
Absolutely.
Right? If you make the best product in the world, nobody complains about that. Right? So if you change your focus from market-driven to product-driven, you can sell that product in any market. These are the best one in the world. People come to your door to get that product, right? But if you only work toward the specification of a market, you will do the least to get to that specification and still pass. Instead of having your own standard and getting to the best of your own standard, and you'll pass all specifications after that. So I think those are the three things I would say.
Well, thank you so much, Warford. Thanks for sharing these thoughts with us.
You're welcome.